So basically, when I was looking at Arcane Crepuscular, my first thought was, well, this is going to be good on an invisible frame, right? And I thought, okay, well, who has invisibility, right? You can go through all the different ones. Loki, Cyto 9 is the obvious one, I think, because he's like right out. He's already got evade and all that wonderful goodness. But we already talked about Cyto 9 recently, and he probably would be good with a lot of things we're doing here too. But I really wanted to resurrect Ivara. I wanted to see if we could make her elite among the other frames for invisibility, like the ones that are going to be using evade, which we will talk about later as well. So basically, this is what I came up with. Now, I know a couple of you are probably groaning right now because you've noticed that we're using Nourish. And even I have gotten to the point now where I try and not use Nourish unless I have to, because it's just so overused and I'm running out of bile. You put those things together and I try and use other things. However, you kind of need it for Ivara. Like, when you're running the kind of stuff that we're running, which is like high strength Ivara builds, it's a bit of a problem. You need the energy multiplier, which right now is 2.99 times. When we are invisible, we get a 30% extra ability strength, so we go up to 272% ability strength. Not 100% sure why it says 332 down to 242 right now. And of course, with Precision Intensify, Nourish specifically is getting an extra 90% ability strength. So it's at 350 and goes up to 380% for specifically Nourish. So that's energy multiplier is going to go over 3 times. So every single time you pick up an energy orb, it's not just 50 energy orb, it's over 150 energy orb. Like, it's go crazy. And every single time you pick up a health orb, it's going to give you 90% energy. So Equilibrium is going to be converting pretty much everything on the ground into Craptone energy. The amount of times I've been running around and been down to like 100 energy, and then like I killed one person and they pooped out a health orb and an energy orb, and I was back to 653 energy while testing this, was pretty nice. We are running Arcane Energize. Obviously, it would be better if you had an R5. I have been unlucky with my rolls and unwilling to do Eidolons, so we only have an R1. But we are using, of course, the new Arcane Crepuscular to help with the damage of an Ivara that's using invisibility, as most Ivaras are probably wants to do. So why even Ivara? Okay, so the reason why is, yes, she has a visibility. She has a headshot damage multiplier on Prowl, which is going to become in handy because if you're familiar with the newer mods that came out with 1999, a lot of them had to do with quote-unquote weak point kills, which for a lot of humanoids is their head. So headshot damage is going to help with a lot of that. Now, Nourish, yes, as we said, it's good for the multiplier, but it's also really good for the damage increase because we're going to get 149% free viral on our weapons. So that helps as well. Most of this is probably pretty self-explanatory, but we'll go through it. Blind Rage, more strength. Precision Intensify, supercharging Nourish. Transient Fortitude, more strength. Narrow-minded for the duration so that our Prowl doesn't drain so fast. It's not crazy because, so if you don't know, efficiency isn't the only thing that affects drain abilities. Duration also reduces the drain per second abilities. Augur Secrets, more strength. We're probably seeing a vibe here. Prime Flow for energy max because we absolutely need more energy max. I was thinking about what shards I would put on her if I did have the shards to put on them. I think, honestly, if I was going to take this Ivara Prime build further, and I was going to try and min-max the crap out of it, and I was going to use her as like a normal Warframe, I would actually probably put energy max shards on her. Because with Equilibrium and Energize and Nourish, you're actually going to be able to like zoop back to your energy max quite a lot. And with energy max shards, you can make it so that Prowl basically has enough juice to get you through any situation. So I think if I was going to put Archon shards on this build, it would be that. We have corrosive projection in the aura. There's a very good argument for using an aura forma and putting in worthy camaraderie because we are going to be doing, as I said, like a weak point build here. We just don't have an aura forma right now. So if you have one, I would suggest switching to worthy camaraderie because I think it would be worth the damage increase. And then, of course, the last one is infiltrate, which you kind of need not for the bypass laser barriers. I mean, that's great if you're doing spy missions, but really the 25% movement speed, because otherwise Ivara is just kind of painful. As far as the weapons go, you will probably see these two a lot in my Arcane Crepuscular Acuity builds because they just worked really well for me. I tried a lot of weapons I thought would work, and some of them didn't work as well as I'd wanted, and some of them did. Some of them worked better. But my Rubico Prime has been quite good. So we'll talk about this build. So, first things first, this is invisibility. Hush. If you do not have a silent weapon, you have to silence the weapon. Because otherwise, people are going to be running around and doing all their dumb shit and using their abilities because they know somebody's near you. And it's going to be really hard to hit people in the head. Because you have to hit people in the head with this concept, all right? Spoiler, if you can't hit headshots on stationary or slowly walking targets, you're going to have a bad time. And being silent has a lot of other things that we'll talk about when we actually get into the missions with this. You can actually do things that kind of don't make sense to me, but we'll get into that when we cross that bridge. The Arcane is going to be primary Deadhead for extra damage on precision headshot kill stacks, plus it reduces weapon recoil and it increases the headshot multiplier. So it helps even more with shooting people in the head. So the two mods that really make this really good are going to be these two right here. And they're the new ones that came with 1999. This one is just an upgraded version of Serration. It has a very simple requirement. You have to be invisible. But while you're invisible, you get plus 330% damage, which is a lot more than normal Serration. Or Amalgam Serration, which is the one I always use. And so that's huge, but you have to be invisible. So this is why we use it on invisible frames, right? Now, with Evade being added to the helmet system, yes, the concept of invisibility frame has spread. A lot more Warframes can become invisibility frames. But to look at specifically one of the OGs first, yes, Ivara does benefit greatly from the addition of this mod. The second is primary acuity. I don't have the endo to get at that last step yet, but believe me when I tell you this, primary acuity is one of those mods that you want to max. Every single step rank up on this mod is massive. And what does it do? It does something really cool. It increases the weak point damage and the weak point critical chance that you do, which for 90% of people that you're actually going to want to use this against, because there's no way you're going to want to try and hit the heads of infested. Believe me, it's atrociously awful. If you're playing infested, we'll talk about that. But believe me, you don't want to use this build against infested. It's just, good lord, their heads are in the weirdest locations. But other than infested, especially with Corpus, because Corpus have easy to hit heads, they're giant blocks. Grineer, a little less so because they have the big shoulder armor that sometimes means you can't hit their heads from behind, but still pretty darn simple. This makes you hitting their head do astronomical damage. Astronomical. But it has a caveat. It has a thing that happens that makes it kind of sad, but worth it nonetheless. And that is that multi-shot cannot be modified afterwards. Now, that can work in your favor If you consider Rivens, right? If you're unaware, Rivens will roll their positives at higher values if there is a negative present on the Riven. So if you have a Riven that's like plus damage, plus critical chance, plus critical damage, but minus multi-shot, and you're like, oh man, that's so close to good, but minus multi-shot, that just ruins it. If you put that Riven onto a weapon with either primary or its secondary version, pistol acuity, that negative will not happen because that is modifying the multi-shot. Going negative is a modification. So there are a few Rivens that you're probably like, damn, that's pretty darn close to perfect, but it's been ruined. Not if you put it on a acuity build. Then it doesn't matter at all because you already are throwing out the concept of multi-shot. There are probably a lot of guns in the game where it's still not worth it. You know what I'm saying? But there are probably a lot of guns in the game that it now suddenly became very worth it, and that Riven is actually amazing. So look through your Rivens. If you see anything like that, plop her in. All right. So now, because we have all these massive additions to weak points here, yeah, critical damage is the name of the game. I put Point Strike on because I want to get into, the higher red crit tiers, and we already have critical chance on our Riven, so I figured we might as well just lean into it. But yes, almost every single other mod here is going to be critical damage, critical damage, critical damage. Because that's what we want. We want our critical damage multiplier to be as high as possible. And of course, you're probably looking at this 9.6x down to 8.4x thing. That's because our companion has, I think it's Tenacious Bond. Yes, so when your companion's weapon has a critical chance over 50%, we gain a plus 1.2 times final critical damage multiplier. We will talk about the Death Cube build much more than that. You can take a look at it right now if you would like to. We've showcased that build several times before. It has not changed. The exact same build. Yes, we have a Riven. It's plus damage, plus critical chance, plus heat. Just more damage, really. The critical chance, it's not as good as it used to be. This was a Riven that I got when a long time ago, before 1999 was even an idea. And then magnetic capacity is for more damage plus the extra magazine capacity, which takes us from a 5-round magazine to 7. It actually does help a lot, to be honest. Having a 5-round magazine with a sniper rifle with a 2-second reload does hurt. There's other things you could use here. There's an argument for maybe using target acquired or a few of the other mods that would either increase your critical damage or your critical chance and things like that. Obviously, you would not use galvanized chamber because multi-shot cannot be modified. So anything like that you would normally throw in, it is now useless. Hunter munitions is an idea, but so far in our testing, most enemies do not survive long enough for hunter munitions to actually matter. And so we'll sort of go through, before we go to the Akjagara Prime, we'll sort of go through the Rubico Prime's way of doing things here. So put on some heavy gunners here. So first things first, we go into Prowl. That gives us all of our Spectral Serration, Arcane Crepuscular bonuses. And so for the first little bit, you're probably going to be one-shotting most things. Most things. And as, of course, the shot combo ranks up on the Rubico, it's going to go even higher. Yes, we're getting a lot of added damage from our supercharged Nourish. Yeah, so you can see, we're doing crap tons of damage to people's faces. If you don't hit their head, you see the difference there? It's massive. It's like Insane. You have to hit them in the head. Absolutely. You absolutely have to hit them in the head. Almost nothing, 6.8 million. Almost nothing, 4.5 million. Almost nothing, 4.5 billion. Yeah, you need to hit them in the head. And that's the definite weakness of the build. There's two real weaknesses. One, you're slow as molasses because you're in prowl, right? So you're probably going to be spending your entire life just rolling everywhere. Again, good luck doing like anything that requires a significant amount of jumping. But the damage is insane. And that's because of the wonderful goodness of the acuity mods. Spectral Serration, Ivara's headshot multiplier on Prowl, and Arcane Crepuscular. And again, you could do this even better if you had an Aura Forma, and you could put on Worthy Camaraderie. So it could even go higher. So now the Akjagara Prime, this is what I use for my secondary. It's a little bit different because we're going to be using a different, like Arcane. Yeah, you're probably looking at secondary Enervate and going, right? You could use secondary Deadhead if you were using another secondary. But this is another new Arcane that came out in 1999. It's very good on high fire rate guns that have other things going for them other than critical chance. Let's be honest. So the Akjagara Prime is kind of a very decent fire rate, high status weapon that also has like halfway okay crit. So we're actually using secondary Enervate on this for like more of a fast playstyle. Instead of, slowly clicking heads and doing millions of damage, you're going to be doing it a little differently. Now again, we ran out of endo, so pistol acuity is not at its absolute peak. And I would definitely tell you, and I'll reiterate again, just like primary acuity, you want to max these because every single step rank up is a massive DPS increase. Other than that, we're running some status chance mods to get our status over 100%. We're adding Magnetic Might for more critical damage and also more damage. Obviously, Hornet Strike for more damage. Prime Target Cracker for more critical damage. Fire rate is not necessary, but our Riven has fire rate, critical chance, and status chance. Wish it had a negative, but it doesn't. Galvanized Shot, extra status chance, plus it's a gun co. If you don't know what that means, it's gun condition overload. So it increases your damage multiplicatively per status type affecting it. And because we have 112% status chance, we're going to be applying a lot of status chances very quickly. A lot of statuses very quickly. We're running Magnetic Corrosive. If you're wondering why I tend to run a lot of Magnetic now, it's because Magnetic does more damage to Overguard units now, and there's a lot of XMIs in the game, or XMI in the game, so it helps. So the difference between a Rubico and Akjagara Prime, other than looking sick, let's be honest, is that it's a little more up close in your face, and I would call it faster. We tend to reset Enervate at around 150%. You still have to hit heads. That is a thing that has to happen. But we're still doing far more damage than it's really matter. Like, I mean, we're like hitting them like 3-4 times. Yeah, so this is like a good secondary to use. If you're going up against Infested specifically, I would actually suggest switching to the Vesper, which we have built sort of. We're still, I mean, we have all the important mods, let's be honest. And we're using secondary Deadhead because it does not have a high fire rate at all. But if you're going up against Infested, I would suggest using the Vesper, even though I would definitely just say don't go up against Infested with this build at all. But the reason is, let's see if we can get some chargers. Yeah, let's go with chargers here. The reason is, it'll actually highlight their head when you're looking at them. And there are actually still infested things that don't have heads. So you'll like point at them and be like, I don't even know. But this helps because a lot of the infested units have heads in really weird locations. You're like, oh, I got to headshot this thing. All right, even with like, I mean, they just move around so much. It's so hard to do a headshot build versus infested because they're just the worst. But as you can see, with the Vesper, it's outlined. It's much easier to get an idea of where to shoot. So you could still do it. It would feel awful because you're like slowly one-shotting a horde. I just honestly, I would just say don't. Just don't use this build against infested. Lavos exists. You know what I mean? So yeah, can Ivara work? Absolutely. Can Ivara do a crap ton of damage? Absolutely. If you like playing it slow, if you're like a Splinter Cell player looking for a new home, yes, you can go along and do this. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care. I will see you on the next stream.